Hello and welcome to the first of my end of year book content videos. I have a few different videos planned to kind of give a good summary and wrap up of how my year of reading went, and this is just the first one. And to be honest, this is one that I'm probably most excited about because I have always loved watching these videos and I'm excited to do my own. I feel like it really makes you think about and also talk about books that otherwise I probably just wouldn't mention because they've not necessarily been standout books in terms of my favourite, but I feel like it's fun to really get a good picture of my reading taste and all of the different kinds of books that I have read this year. So this is going to be the end of year book tag. Now I know this trend has been going around for years and years. I think for as long as I've watched BookTube, this has been a thing. However, the questions have evolved over the years and I'm taking most of my questions from the videos I have seen from Destiny and Larry, so I will of course leave their videos linked down below if you have not yet seen them, and I will also leave a list of all of the questions I am answering today in this video so that you can also answer, because for me I found it really fun looking through all of the books I read this year and coming up with answers to these questions. So with that said, let's just get into the questions, I guess. So the first question is most disappointing book of the year. It doesn't mean that this is a bad book or that I didn't like it at all. It just meant that I personally was disappointed by it. It was not what I was expecting or not what I was personally wanting from that book. This is always going to be a book that's quite like hyped and I was very much looking forward to reading, and I know that this is going to be a controversial answer because I know that this book is so loved. This is a series that I absolutely love. It's obviously one of my favourite series ever. I talk about it a lot, but this one unfortunately did disappoint me. This is Magnolia Park's Into the Dark. This is the 5th book in the Magnolia Park series, is that right? Yeah, 5th book in the Magnolia Parks series, but specifically the 3rd and final book following Magnolia and BJ. I think that for me, I am someone who loves the whole Magnolia Parks universe because I love the messy, angsty, painful, sometimes toxic romance that we get in these books, and this book just was not that, which, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy for the characters, but it just wasn't what I've grown to love in this series. I know that lots of people are really glad that this book didn't have a lot of that in it, but for me, I was missing that. And I do also have to say that after the last books that came before this, I kind of found myself jumping ships a little bit, and therefore I knew that this one was always going to be a little bit difficult for me. I did enjoy it, okay? I love these characters and I love being in this world. Anytime I get to read a book in this world, I'm happy, but it just didn't match up to the other books in this series for me. I think this felt like a very long epilogue. I am actually somebody who doesn't really like epilogues. I will often skip over them, particularly in romance books where it's just like seeing them happily ever after. So knowing that, you might understand why this book just wasn't for me, especially given that it is like 650 pages, and for me it was just like a really long epilogue and I just didn't need it. Next question is, what was an underdog book? I'm taking this as a book that I didn't really know how I was going to feel about it. I hadn't really seen other people talk about it. So for this I'm going with The Temptation of Magic by Megan Scott. This is the first in a duology. I think, yeah, there's going to be a second book, and I just absolutely loved it. I hadn't heard anybody talk about it. I have to say there are some themes of art in this book that went right over my head. I am not a big artsy person, and I think that's maybe why I wasn't expecting to love this, but I still did. I loved the characters, I loved the romance. It's really not too long and it was just a really kind of like quick, cozy, fun read, and I am excited to read the second book when it comes out. So yeah, for this one we have The Temptation of Magic. Also a little shout out for this beautiful edition. I feel like I've shown this quite a few times on my channel. And next we have an overhyped book that you've read. I always hate answering questions like this because obviously this is a book that is very popular and that's fine, it's allowed to be popular. I guess the reason that I'm putting it here is because I saw so many people absolutely loving and raving about this book. It was everywhere, and so I had to pick it up. And then when I read it, it just wasn't for me. And at the time that I read it, I hadn't really heard any other people talk about it and the issues with it and why it might not be for everybody. Since I have read this, I have seen a lot of other people saying similar things, and I do not think that this is a bad book, but I do think this is not going to be for everybody. This is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is the first book in the Moonfall series, and personally I will not be continuing on with the series, and that is not because I think it is a bad book, it's just I personally couldn't get on with it. I did read this in a reading vlog, I'm pretty sure, so I gave a lot more thoughts and feelings on it then, but this took me a really long time to get through. The writing just wasn't personally for me, and I have also seen a lot of people love her other books. I think she has maybe a couple of other series, and there's one in particular that I've seen lots of people talking about, and I personally probably will now just not pick that up because now I know that I just don't gel with this author, and that is absolutely fine. Yeah, for me this one was overhyped. Oh, okay, this is interesting. A book you loved in the moment but don't think about now. This was hard because I was going through all of the books I've read this year, and so many of them that I loved I definitely do think about a lot. So for this one, I'm actually going with The Sweetest Oblivion. I absolutely loved this book, and I read it in like Reading Dark Romance for a Week video, which I think was like one of maybe the first videos I uploaded this year. And I absolutely loved it, but then I just haven't thought about it again, and I just have not gone to continue the series. I don't know if I will, but at the time that I read this, it was a vibe and I just had a great time. Okay, next question is your favorite book couple of the year. Now listen, I am a big couple person. Anything that I read, anything that I watch, I always have a ship, and often it's not the main characters or like the main romance. Like I really ship a lot of side romances. I don't know why that is, but I do. So this is kind of hard because I do feel like side romances are often a little bit of a spoiler, especially when it comes to fantasy books. So I'm struggling with this one, but what I will say is Johnny and Shannon from Binding 13. They're obviously not a side romance, like this is their story, Binding 13 and Keeping 13. I just absolutely loved them. I think they are perfect together. They're definitely a favourite romance. And then I do have another one that I just have to say because I absolutely died over this couple, but they are a side romance. So I'm not gonna actually say the couple because, I don't know, for me it was a really pleasant surprise when this happened. But what I'm gonna say, and the girls that get it, okay? What did Lorcan do? If you've read the series, you will know they are literally one of my favourite couples. And although technically I did meet that couple last year, it didn't become a thing until the books that I read this year, if that makes sense. So yeah, and then similar to that, we have your favourite main characters of the year. This one's harder for me. I have a lot of favourite characters, but these are just the ones that really like stuck out to me. I'm sorry, I'm just looking for the book. Okay, so firstly, again, sorry, Boys of Torment, Joey Lynch. I love Joey Lynch. He is definitely probably my favourite character so far from Boys of Torment. And then the other one is very different actually, and I would not have expected to be holding up this book for this question, but Isabel from The Nightingale. She is one of the sisters that we follow in this book, and I just think she is amazing, and she is definitely a favourite character for me. Okay, new favourite author you discovered this year. This is hard because I think that this has to be a author that I have read a few books from this year, and the ones that I have on this list, they're not all like new to me this year. I had previously read some of their books, but they like really cemented themselves as favourite authors for me this year. So we have Chloe Walsh, who obviously wrote the Boys of Torment series. I've not read any of her books outside of the Boys of Torment series, but I just love her writing. That's just my kind of writing. Abby Jimenez, I'm pretty sure this was the first year I read any Abby Jimenez books. No, that's not true. Actually, I did read Part of Your World last year, but then this year I have read a few more of her books and I really enjoy her books. Then we have Frida McFadden. So again, I had read one or two of her books before this year, but then the ones that I read this year I just absolutely loved, and I know people are very split on her and her books, but for me, I just love and appreciate how easy they are to read and fly through, and I just get really sucked into them. So Frida McFadden. And then the last one is Ali Hazelwood. Now I have definitely read other Ali Hazelwood books before, but the two that I read from her this year kind of had low expectations of, or not low expectations, but I wasn't sure they were going to be for me just based on what they're about, and I absolutely loved both of them, and I kind of come to really appreciate that. Again, she is an author similar to kind of Frida McFadden, where I just know when I pick up one of her books, I'm gonna be having a good time. I appreciate how her writing is not over convoluted, but at the same time, it's really gripping, and I love the romances that she writes. And now we have an author that didn't work out for you this year. I know that this is an unpopular opinion, and that is fine. Okay, I am in no way saying that this author is a bad author. I'm just saying that her books are not for me, unfortunately, and I have kind of finally accepted that this year, and I am no longer going to be picking up any more of her books, and that is Emily Henry. I have not disliked every book that I've read from her, but I have found myself having the same gripes time and time again, and it's kind of just got to a point where I'm not enjoying reading the books, so I am no longer going to. So yeah, Emily Henry for that one. Okay, next we have Happiest Read of the Year. If you've noticed, by the way, I've really been trying to not repeat books, so some of these probably like could have been the answers for multiple questions, but I'm trying to give different books where I can. So Happiest Read of the Year, I actually have 2 for this, and this was really hard because if I'm honest, I don't love happy books. Like, that's just not for me. I'm not somebody who loves a good fluffy romance, but these 2 I guess I would class as fluffy romances, and I did really like them. I think I very much have to be in the right mood, and also they have to be, I don't know, right for me in other ways. So I have When in Rome by Sarah Adams. Sarah Adams, I would say, is an author who does write fluffy romances, and this is honestly the only one that I have really enjoyed. So yeah, happy books are really not my genre, but for some reason this one just really worked for me. I know that this is a really popular book, so if you have not read this, I really recommend. It's just a really cute small town. One of them is famous trope romance, and I loved it. And the other one is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. I can't fully remember if I would say this is like a fluffy romance, but it definitely felt like a rom-com when I was reading it, so that's kind of why I am categorizing it as a happy book. I had a really fun time reading this. I loved it. I loved our female main character, and I just loved being in her head, to be honest. So yeah. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have Saddest Book of the Year. Now, this is more up my street, and honestly, there are so many that I could say for this, but I've kind of just tried to stick to one, okay? Because there are 2 books that made me cry this year. I do not cry easily at books, and so I had to give it to one of these, okay? And the other one is actually an answer for another question, so that's why I'm going with this book for this. You may have watched the reading vlog, The Nightingale by Chris and Hannah. I know that everybody cries at this book, but I just did not think that I would, okay? Because I just don't cry at books. Films, TV shows, I'll cry like a baby all of the time. In real life, I cry at everything. I have gone to watch Ollie and my sister run like half marathons, etc. And standing at the finish line, not even watching them, but watching random people cross the finish line, I am an absolute mess. So tell me why I find it really hard to produce actual tears at books. I don't know, but I do. Anyway, I didn't think I would cry at this, but I did. And compared to other people, I don't think I cried that much, but I did cry, and it was very sad. And I really enjoyed reading this. I felt like it was educational for me as well, which I really enjoyed. Historical fiction is really not my kind of genre, but I had a great time reading that. Did I have a great time reading that? Because it made me really sad. I'm glad I read it. I enjoyed my reading experience. Okay, next we have Most Frustrating Book of the Year. This makes me very sad to say because as I have just said, love the Boys Are Talking books. This one was so frustrating for me. The back and forth with just no progress. It was frustrating, but not in a good way. I don't want to say any more on that, but yeah, that one was a bit of a letdown for me. Now we have Best Book Adaptation. I have watched quite a few adaptations this year where I have not read the book, and most of them I have watched and not felt inclined to read the book after because I felt like I've got enough from the show or film. But there is one that I have watched recently where I think I am going to read the book, and I don't know if that's a good idea because I have a feeling that it might ruin things for me, but I'm obsessed and I need more, and I don't think I can wait until season 2 comes out. And that is Rivals. The book is by Jilly Cooper. The show is on Disney Plus in the UK. I think in the US is it on Hulu or something like that. If you have not watched it, please watch it. It is so good. I just had the best time reading it, watching it, and the romance. I died over the romance. Also such a great cast. I mean, if you're not British, then you might not know a lot of the cast, but if you are British, amazing cast, and they literally all did an amazing job. Okay, next we have favourite covers of the year. So we have When the Moon Hatched. Even though I didn't really like this book, I will be keeping it because I absolutely love this cover. Also another one that I've already spoken about, The Temptation of Magic. I like the cover because it's a special edition foiling, there's a reversible dust jacket, but the main thing that I like about this edition is the character artwork on the end pages. Stunning. And then I also have the Crimson Moth. Again, this is another Fairy Loot special edition. I absolutely love this book as well. The reversible dust jacket, front and back we have character artwork. I actually am now looking at books here and there's a few other covers that I absolutely love, but they are going to be answers for other questions anyway, so you will see those covers. A book you haven't stopped thinking about. Okay, remember when I said that there were 2 books that made me cry this year? This is the other one. This series in general, I just can't stop thinking about. That might have something to do with my TikTok algorithm is really honed in on Throne of Glass, and I just get served with the most amazing Throne of Glass edits all day, every day, and I just can't stop thinking about it, and I definitely want to do a reread of this series. I don't know if that will be next year or the year after. I would really like to reread ACOTAR first, just because it's been longer since I've read that, and obviously we are hopefully getting a new ACOTAR book in the next year or 2. A book you can't stop recommending. I think I'm actually going to have to stop talking about this series next year because I am probably boring you all to death. But if I'm going to be honest, I feel like you've not read it. Like, I have told you so many times to read this series and you still haven't read it, so I am going to have to keep telling you about it until you listen. This is the Kingdom of Lies series. I absolutely love this. I was just talking about how much I loved Throne of Glass. This series is such Throne of Glass vibes, okay? If you loved Throne of Glass and you are struggling to fill that void in your life, please read the Kingdom of Lies series by Stasia Stark. It is so good, and I will keep recommending it because I feel like it's really underrated. Okay, an unpopular book you loved. Now this was really hard for me, and I think that loved is not the right word, but I really enjoyed reading it and I thought it was beautiful, and everybody hates this book, and that makes me sad because this was supposed to be a series, and now I'm kind of wondering whether we are actually going to get any more books in the series. This is another one that I could have mentioned for favourite cover because I absolutely love this cover, but technically I got the book last year but read it this year. I guess that would have counted. Anyway, Never by Jessa Hastings. This is a Peter Pan retelling. I love Jessa Hastings' writing, and it was even more magical in this, if I'm honest, because we have this kind of like mystical fantasy setting. Her writing just hit. I always get stuck on certain lines in Jessa's books, stuck in terms of like those lines just live rent-free in my head and I can't get them out of my head, and they are often not lines that other people really think too much about. And in this one, it's sometimes when I think about you the sky turns pink. Why do I love that line so much? I don't know. I've never seen anybody else particularly bothered by that line, but I just love that line, and I just think that this book was beautiful and I really enjoyed it. This is like childhood trauma, but I was obsessed with the Peter Pan live action film growing up. It was like my favourite. I also loved Finding Neverland, like because I just fell in love with Peter Pan and Peter and Wendy, and then in Cardigan by Taylor Swift, when it's tried to change the ending, Peter losing Wendy. Anything Peter Pan related just gets me. So it's probably not a surprise that I did enjoy this and loved being in that world. I am literally a Peter Pan fanatic. Like, please don't ask me why because I have no idea, but I love Peter Pan. I don't have any tattoos, but if I was gonna tattoo something on my body, it would be something Peter Pan related. Peter and Wendy just literally makes me cry every time I think about it. Okay, book you thought you'd love but didn't. Talking at Night by Claire Daveley. Also, I actually love this cover. I don't know why, I just love it. This one I thought I was gonna love because I thought it was gonna be really similar to Normal People, which I did love. And it is similar to Normal People, but in a way where it felt like the author was trying to not copy Normal People, but kind of replicate that relationship a little bit through this. But for me, it just didn't hit. And honestly, I didn't even really want them to be together. Okay, book with the most unique concept. I don't know whether this actually is a unique concept or if it's just a subgenre that I really have not read into, but to me it is unique, okay? That is One Dark Window or The Shepherd's King duet by Rachel Gillig. This is like a gothic fantasy, and the vibes it gives and the magic system, so unique. I know this is a really popular duology, but yeah, for me this was really unique and I had a great time reading it. Book you read this year that you would reread. Obviously I spoke about the Throne of Glass series, but I don't really want to count that because I only read Kingdom of Ash this year. All of the other books I read last year. Also, can I just say, I am not a big rereader. I have not reread many books in my life. There's just so many books I want to read, and yeah, I just haven't really reread many. I have some, but yeah, not loads. So I'm never gonna reread loads of books in a year, but there are some books that I think I definitely do want to reread. Sorry, I've really been trying not to repeat books, and I feel like this is maybe like the 3rd time I've held this book up so far. Is it? I don't know. But yeah, I would definitely reread at least Binding 13 and Keeping 13. I don't know about the other books, but Joey and Shannon's books I definitely would reread. I absolutely love them. Okay, book you wish you got to this year. Now there are many, unfortunately, that I wanted to get to. I actually did a 24 books I want to read in 2024 list, and I've been keeping track of how many that I have been reading, and yeah, there are quite a few that I didn't get to. I think I'm going to do a New Year reset kind of video, and I will probably show that on there, like the books that I wanted to read that didn't get to, and I'll probably be doing another list for 2025, so if you're interested in that, that should be coming in the new year. But the first ones that I thought of, I'm disappointed that I have not read this year, and obviously there is still some time left by the end of the year, but I think it's unlikely that I will read any of these. Okay, the first one is a series I feel like recently I've been speaking about a lot in vlogs, about me wanting to pick it up, but it just hasn't ever really felt like the right time. Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I really want to read this series. It's possible that it is something that maybe I could read like over Christmas, but honestly right now I have no idea what I'm going to be reading for the rest of the year, so yeah, this is one that I'm sad I have not got to. Another one is Belladonna. I really want to read this during autumn, winter. Obviously autumn has kind of passed now, so we are left with winter, so I really need to make sure I read this at the start of next year, because I have heard such great things about that series and it sounds like I would like it, so I really want to read that. And then the last one is a book that, to be honest, I haven't picked up because I have seen people read it and not really like it. That is predominantly kind of romance readers, or like readers who read the same kind of books as I do, but I feel like people who really enjoy literary fiction do like this book. I feel like this book has won prizes, and I just think I want to give it a go, because when it comes to more like general fiction books, I don't think I have a taste that aligns similarly to anyone really that I follow on here. I think it's just really hit and miss to whether I connect with a book or not, and whether I like the writing or not. I'm not a big general fiction reader, by the way, I'm never going to be, but every now and again I do like to read one, and some of the ones that I've read I've really enjoyed. So yeah, I think I need to give this a go, and that is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. I also absolutely love this cover. I think this might be the book that I've had on my TBR for the longest. Next we have the last two questions that are not really book specific. So we have Goodreads 2024 reading goal reflection and a reading goal for 2025. My Goodreads goal for this year was 100 books. I feel like I've spoke about this quite a lot in my videos recently, and you guys have all been so kind, because yeah, I am not gonna reach my reading goal, unfortunately. I mean, it's possible that I could if I went on like a massive reading binge over these next couple of weeks, but I know that that's just not gonna happen, because this is the time of year where I'll actually be spending more time with family and friends and doing things, and probably a bit less time reading. I know that's different for everybody, but yeah, for me, I think this is quite a sociable time of year. So I have currently read 87. I am currently in the middle of 3 different books, so hopefully those will be finished and a few others, so I think I will be in the 90s, but I'm not going to reach 100 if I'm going to be realistic, and that is sad, because I feel like for the last few years I haven't had it as my reading goal until this year, but like it's been an aim in my head that one year I want to read 100 books, and it's annoying that I will realistically be so close, but so far, as I said, whenever I've spoken about this, you guys have been so kind, and yeah, I am proud of the number of books that I've read this year. I think that this year is the first like full year that I have done YouTube, and I've put a lot of time into that. I obviously also have a full-time job, and I have friends and family and a boyfriend and dogs, and I feel like I've done a lot of reading this year. This is the most I have ever read in a year. I think my previous high was around 80 last year, I think. Maybe just under 80, so this is still the most books I've ever read, so I am proud of the amount that I've read, but yeah, it would have been nice to hit that goal. Thinking about my goal for next year, now this is something that I've thought about quite a lot. I really want to read 100 books in a year, but realistically next year I don't think is going to be the year that I manage to do that. Now that's for a few different reasons. January to the end of March is always my busiest period work-wise in terms of my actual job. That's the busiest time of the year for us, so that's going to be really busy. Towards the end of March is also my birthday, and I am turning 30 this year, so I will be wanting to, you know, celebrate with friends and family for that. And then in April I am going to Australia for a couple of weeks with Ollie. Well, just over a couple of weeks actually, and that is a trip where I am unlikely to do any reading. And then I also have a holiday planned with my friends. We are like celebrating all of us turning 30. So I don't know, I just feel like next year is going to be quite a busy year, and obviously I want to keep up with my YouTube, and obviously like this YouTube is based on books and reading. So I of course am going to be reading, but what I've found with having a goal of 100 books is that is about 2 books a week, right? When I have periods of time where I'm not able to do that, I find it really hard to catch up, because honestly I find it really hard to read more than 2 books a week. I just think that I don't have the time. Yeah, when I do try to do that, I really feel like I have to sacrifice other hobbies and other things. So I don't think I'm going to set a goal of 100 books next year, just because I know that I have these weeks where I am just not going to be able to read maybe even 1 book in the week, and I just know that it's going to be hard to catch up, and I just don't want that hanging over my head. So I think my goal for next year is going to be around 70, maybe 75. I still want to do a lot of reading. I hope that I will go over that goal, but I also just don't want the pressure of a super high goal. I think there are more important things in life than how many books you read in a year. Okay, and then the final question, thank God, because how long have I been filming for? It feels like ages. Yeah, I've been filming for 45 minutes, so I think we need to wrap this up. What will you prioritize next year? This one is quite easy for me. I think for a while now, I've kind of known that I want to change up my reading a little bit from this year, because if I'm going to be honest, this year I haven't enjoyed reading as much as I have in the kind of couple of years before that, and I've kind of found myself not having as many 5-star reads and just feeling like meh about a lot of books. And I think that the reason for that is because I've really let this channel kind of dictate what I read, how much I read, when I read, and obviously because I've wanted to make fun and engaging content for you guys. And I think that next year, and you may have already realised that kind of my content has changed a little bit over the last couple of months, and I've kind of moved towards doing more general mood reading vlogs, how much I read in a week vlogs and things like that. And I think that that is something that I want to continue doing a lot more of next year. I want to just allow myself to read what I want to read when I want to read it, and not do as many challenges. There are definitely some exceptions for that, so I really do enjoy doing 24-hour readathons when I have the right time to film that, because that does take a lot out of me, but at the same time I really enjoy it, and that's something that I try to really like romanticize when I'm doing it. So I would still like to do some of those next year, and I would also still like to do some challenges, like challenge videos. Those are definitely like the most popular videos of mine, that you guys seem to like the most, and I get it. But yeah, I was just kind of finding that I was reading books that I just wasn't in the mood to read at that time, or I was forcing myself to read more than I realistically had time to in that day. There will definitely be times where I will still do that because it's fun, but I think that I would like to have an approach where my vlogs are a bit more casual, kind of like weekly reading vlogs, and sometimes they may have a theme and sometimes they may not. I also have enjoyed filming some more just kind of like general life vlogs, so I've been thinking a little bit about how I will incorporate that into my reading vlogs, and maybe it will just be kind of like a weekly vlog where I talk a lot about what I'm reading, but also just show you my life, because so far I've tried to keep those two things very separate, and when I am doing weekly vlogs and not talk too much about books. So I don't know, I'd be interested to know what you think about that. Would you like just like big weekly vlogs where I'm showing what I'm reading but also my life? I know that's how some creators film, and that they are very popular and people really like that, but I also know others who very much stick to this is a reading vlog and then this is a weekly vlog. So yeah, I'd be interested to know how you like to consume content. Do you like to keep books separate to other things? I know some people only care about books, and that's fine, but I do personally enjoy filming some more like lifestyle kind of vlogs as well, so I would like to continue doing that as well. That literally did not answer that question, because this is about what I'll prioritize reading wise, but I think my point with that whole ramble was that I would just like to prioritize mood reading and reading what I like to read. And the other thing is series. Now, I used to read books in series back to back. Okay, I think that is how most people read series, but then because I started this channel, I obviously like know that it will probably be boring for you to just watch me read like books in a series back to back, especially if you're not interested in that series. And obviously after book 1, like I can't really talk to you about the plot of the book. However, I need to change that next year, and I am going to prioritize reading series back to back, or at least closer together. I am in like some ridiculous scenarios where it has been years since I have picked up a book in a series, and it's a series I enjoy and I want to continue reading, and then I just like I can't remember what's going on. I've lost that attachment to the characters because it's been so long since I've read that series, and it's like leaving my brain a bit scrambled because I feel like I have these like little pieces of information about different series, and some of them are very similar, so it's like just often a bit confusing. So I think that next year I want to prioritize reading series closer together, and I think that also for the end of this year I might try and prioritize finishing off a few series where I can, just to get that a little bit cleaner. And then next year I will be creating a new series tracker with all of the series that I want to carry over into next year, and obviously next year as I start series I will be adding those as well. Those are the two things: mood reading, and then also just allowing myself to really just like get lost in a series and fully experience reading that series. Okay, I'm really sorry, I feel like I've really rambled on in this video. Hopefully I'll be able to edit it down a little bit so you're not bored hearing me talk, but yeah, I've really enjoyed filming this. Actually, I feel like it's been a really good wrap up of my year in books, and talking about some books, as I said, that I don't talk about all of the time. But as I said, I'm also planning to film a couple more videos for my end of year content. One of those will be kind of like the top books I've read this year, and the other one will be a kind of wrap up of every book I've read this year, but obviously not in the same way that I would normally do a wrap up because that would take a long time. I have a kind of fun idea to do that, and I hope that you will enjoy that when it comes. But yeah, that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to leave a comment, like and subscribe. I would love to see you in my next video. Bye!